TSM News के मिगड़ी मुहिम खबर तो के सुरही तो के तेरेगा तीम आवश्यक गोतो नाजुक काम तक नहीं तेरे कम फॉर को दिनमा क्लाइमेट फाइनेंसिंग आ लंदन कंडेलुमा राइसो जमहूरिया गोआलेवो इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड दुनिया के एक काम तक एहियोम फदाफावा स्पेशल ड्रॉविंग राइट्स SDR रिजर्व बाय कुद जजीरा काम तक दिनमा दिविराजिंग गोआदो मिहारगे मिहातन 30 मशरूगे मसक निम फावा कमशा मिहार निवमुगे कुरिंग इतुर 26 मशरूगे मसक निमेने कमा इमारा कुरमा बिनारा बे वजीर विताल खबर गे तुरुं एमे बेनु जहिफावा मिहुन आमाज कोगेन सब्सिडी देम पेशमुं एमिहुन कुरंजे खरदवरिंग इतुर फैसागे ही लिबेन कमा सरुकारु विताल खबर गे तफसील वेस मिगेडी खबर गा
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलाम वालेकुम PSM न्यूज़ के मिगड़ी के खबर बलम गंदवाई में हाबलम तेरे मरहबा दनवा मिगड़ी के खबर तक आए कि मैं बदल को ले आलून मरियम शावशत तिमावशे के गोतुम नाजुक कौम तक यही तरीकम फोर को दिनमा क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस के आ लंदन कंडेलुमा रईसुल जमहूरिया डॉक्टर मोहम्मद मुइज़ गोवाला वैफे Emanik fund mikama Govalevi COP Navavi huge Havasa Gabevi High Level Roundtable Enabling Climate Finance ka Wahak Furutakavamok. COP Navavi huge Havasa Gabevi High Level Roundtable Enabling Climate Finance ka Wahak Furutakavamok Raisul Jumhuriya Vidaluvi Climate Financing ge Lanudading de message emme nazuku kaumta baki nuwane message kan hadanje. Darani maaf kurum fada ijadi visnunta ke gengulumuge muhimmukam fahaga kureve. The small island developing states SIDS ke naazukukama kura kharadaki takulifege gotuga belumuge badaluga muli duniyege salamatata kura maana fum investment ge gotuga belumaiku mosumi badaltakan henumuga ehiterikam for koddevene nizamaka duniyege mali nizam badal kuruma emanik fund govaleve mikamuga private sector ge muhimmu dawru fahaga kurawamon e daira ge ehiterikamayiku fahi inayattakakaiku ಮಾನವಿ ಬದಲ್ತಕ್ಕೆ ಗೆನೋಮ ಮಗುಫಹಿ ಕುರೆವೇಣಕಮ ವಿದಾಳುವೆ ರೈಸುಲ್ ಜುಮ್ಹೂರಿಯಾವಣಿ ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರುಂ ಲೋನ್ ದೂಕುರ ರಸ್ಮಿ ಫರಾತಗ ಗುಳಿಗೆ ಏಕಶೇಣ ಗೊತ್ತಗೆ ಲೋನ್ ದಿನುಮಶಾ ಎಲೋನು ಅಂಬುರಾ ದೆಕ್ಕುಮುಗೆ ಮುದ್ದತ ಲೂಯಿ ಗೊತ್ತಗೆ ಹಮ್ಜಸವ ದೆವುಮಂ ಎದಿವಡಾಗೆಂಫ International Monetary Fund duniyage eki kaumtakan ehiwumang ufaddafawa Special Drawing Rights SDR Reserve baye Kudi Jazira kaumtaka dinuma divehi rajyain gowalafe rajyain mikama gowala fawani rajya Antigua and Barbuda ge iturung International Institute for Environment and Development IIED intizam kogen COP Navavi huge Havasa ge terem bevi high level side event ga Raisul Jumhuriya Dr. Mohammad Muiz ge khas mandube ge haysiyatun mosumi badaltaka timavetta hakatya be wazir Tariq Ibrahim dekkevi wahak fuluga
Special Drawing Rights SDR ki namaste ka fastolas nuwanaharu IMF un taraf kufa bain lakwami reserve asset fund mihata nami fundu ga nuwasate ka 3 billion america dollar himene me duniya ge gaum takan ehi umang ufadda fa fund high level side event ka raisul jumhuriya ge khas mandube ge haysiyatun wahak furdakam mosumi badaltaka timavetta hakate abe wazir Tariq Ibrahim vidalwi mosumi badaltakun aragane bilunteriuma kudi jazira kaum takun kura masakatuga mali ehi dinuma SDR ge onigandu muraja kurenche hekama mige sababun kudi jazira kaumtaka dimawa daranige mas temme genestene mosumi badaltaka gule gotum bawwa kudi jazira kaumtauge isweringe baddalumuga raisul jumhuriya tagrir kurevo
who is the Minister of Natural Resources, Environment and Lands of Samoa and Chair of the Alliance Island States. His leadership underscores the urgent need for climate justice and support for nations facing severe climate impacts. So over to you, Minister Schuster.
Thank you. The President of Azerbaijan, COP29 President, heads of government, excellencies, delegates. I want to first thank the COP29 presidency for this initiative and particular attention given to SIDS and recognition of our unique challenges. thank you for your warm hospitality shown to all our delegates here in Baku. Mr. President, the special needs and circumstances of SIDS were recognized at the Rio Conference in 1992 and were reaffirmed at the last SIDS conference in Antigua and Barbuda earlier this year in June. They are also reflected in Article 9 of the Paris Agreement, which recognizes our capacity constraints in accessing climate finance. The Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for Small Island Developing States is only the latest international agreement that operationalizes the special needs and circumstances of SIDS. Climate change is a phenomenon that is impacting all of us today. 2024 broke many worrisome records. We have seen many extreme weather events all around the world, from record-breaking heat globally. June and August 2024 were the hottest on record globally. July 2024 set the new record for the daily global average temperature. Hurricane Beryl was the first major storm of the 2024 Atlantic season and set multiple records. Extreme rainfalls caused catastrophic flooding and loss of lives in some parts of the world, while droughts are worsening in others. The winter maximum for Antarctic sea ice was the second lowest on record. As this normal is settling in, the very survival of our most vulnerable countries with the least responsibility in the climate crisis has ceased to be a distant prospect. The irreversible damage from climate change impacts are already being felt by SIDS. They must be addressed with a keen sense of urgency. For AOSIS, 1.5 is not just an abstract number. It has deep implications for the complete loss of our nations, our culture, and our identity. And relatedly, one of the main focuses of this COP, the new Climate Finance Goal, or NCQG, must be set in a way that substantially supports all developing countries in their effective implementation of the Paris Agreement, its goals, and all those commitments contained under it. That said, SIDS and LDC, within that broader group of developing countries, were promised special accommodation in Article 9 of the Paris Agreement. AOSIS is here at this COP to see them operationalize. And for clarity, a simple references or recognition for SIDS and LDC special circumstances will not suffice. In the NCQG, there needs to be tailored and specific measures for both our groups for the scaled-up provision of finance and enhanced access. One of those measures includes the adoption of a respective minimum allocation floors for SIDS of at least USD 39 billion per year, and for LDCs, at least 220 billion per year, within the provision goals of the NCQG. So no matter the overall number agreed at the quantum of the NCQG, SIDS require the agreement of these minimum allocation floors, as these minimum allocation floors represent a commitment to predictable and accessible climate finance for adaptation and loss and damage response in a financial system that is designed for us. Our small economies, limited resources, and our geographic remoteness must be fully addressed within NCQG design and implementation. Agreement to a goal that fails to recognize the special case of SIDS would contradict the Convention's and Paris Agreement provisions. Turning now to ambitions. As leaders, we need to show and sustain the political will required to act now. AOSIS commends the Troika leadership in advancing Mission 1.5 and urges continued and intensified efforts to accelerate the successful implementation of the first global stocktake outcome, including all the elements of the energy package. In Dubai, the UAE consensus reaffirmed that as a global community, we are not meeting our climate obligation. But the GST outcome also provides a pathway to course correct by transitioning away from fossil fuel dependence and outlines what energy transformations must happen in this decisive decade to keep the 1.5 target within reach. We are concerned about efforts to divorce this process from the best available science through the IPCC. The success of the Paris Agreement ambition mechanism established through the GST process is highly dependent on access to the latest science from the IPCC reports. We rely on the presidency to ensure that there is a clear message from this COP to the IPCC to accept the invitation from the GST1 outcome, ensure that their reporting cycle is aligned with the GST. AOSIS sees mitigation ambition as an integral part of the success of this COP and pledges full support to the Azerbaijan presidency in reaching a meaningful mitigation outcome. The preparation, timely submission, and implementation of 1.5-degree aligned NDCs must be a key priority. Therefore, the discussions during the next 2 weeks must guide the formulation of a highly ambitious economy-wide NDCs that are Paris Agreement aligned, translate the outcome of the GST into national targets and measures, and cover all greenhouse gases, taking into account the IPCC's call for peaking global emissions by 2025, that is next year. Deep emission cuts must be our aim and our motto in developing our NDC. At COP26, we were promised the doubling of adaptation financing. We were assured that our partners were working towards raising these funds. But since then, access to adaptation finance has remained challenging for us. As countries with the least capacity and resources to implement adaptation actions, we require grant-based financing to meet our urgent adaptation need. Therefore, careful consideration of how to operationalize the doubling of adaptation finance and integrating it into a new goal must also be part of agreement at this COP. The newly established Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage must come into play here. Small island states have advocated for a fund to address loss and damage for many years now. We must ensure the complementarity and coherence among all funding arrangements to address loss and damage as we strive to achieve 1.5 goal within this crucial decade. Now that we have agreed on a set of institutional arrangements for the fund, it is critical that it is fully operationalized, capitalized, and begins to disperse finance for loss and damage as quickly as possible. In conclusion, let me reaffirm our gratitude and full support to the presidency in delivering a successful mitigation and finance outcome that sustained the momentum from COP28 while setting up COP30 for success. I thank you all and welcome the Baku Declaration on amplifying SID's voice at COP29 for a resilient and sustainable future. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We look forward to Samoa and OASIS's leadership in getting a strong agreement here in Baku. I now turn to His Excellency, the President of Maldives, who brings such focused perspective on climate adaptation and environmental protection. Maldives is at the front line of climate vulnerability, and His Excellency has emphasized the need for resilient infrastructure, carbon